Hello everyone, I know I have not uploaded anything in several weeks. Please bear with me right now. It's been a lot lately with Nick's heart condition, us losing our cat, and then one of our close family members collapsing and us having to call 911, and now COVID. Nick has COVID and I probably have too, who knows. I'm waiting for my results. I feel fine so far. He's not so fine. So let's just stay entertained, make some videos, and make a good thing out of this. When you guys see this, it'll be October already, and on October 1st, it's my birthday. I'm turning 31, so happy birthday, future me, I guess. My plan is to do Vlogtober this year. If you don't know what it is, it's like Vlogmas, like when you vlog or make a video and upload it every single day in December. It's just that you do it in October instead. I'm not gonna do it every day though. That's a little too much on my plate for now, but I'm excited to try. Fingers crossed, I'm gonna try to upload 2 videos per week instead of just 1. And it's fall. And I love fall. It's my favorite season of the year. And one of my favorite things about fall is all of the mysterious things going on then. And so I figured, why not make a series about Norse, or I should say like Nordic or Scandinavian mythology and folklore. Part 1 is going to be about something that we've all heard of, we've learned about it in school. It was very sad, it was a very dark time, but it turned into something positive and joyful eventually after a few hundred years have gone by. I'm talking about the witch trials, and we're going to learn today about how Sweden handled this and what happened there. In Sweden, the witch trials were the most intense during 1668 to 1676. The last known case was in 1704. But up until then, witchcraft had not been considered a real bad crime unless you used magic to kill someone. In the 1400s, there are a few cases here and there popping up, but nothing major happened. It wasn't until the year 1571 that priests were told to please keep an eye out for witchcraft, and if you saw someone that you think might be doing witchcraft, tell them that they're no longer welcome to your religious gatherings. At the beginning of the 1600s, there were 3 women who were accused of being seen flying to Blåkulla. Blåkulla was an island that could only be reached by magical flight. This is where the devil lived, and he would lure the witches to his chambers. Some women did admit that they did use magic, but not witchcraft, so you could not punish them. You could not put them on trial and say that they did it, because they had to admit it. But in 1608, it was decided that anyone who was suspected to use witchcraft should be punished by death. Looking back at history and how many women actually admitted to doing these ridiculous crimes, such as milking a cow with a magical cat, or having 7 children with the elf king who also lived at Blåkulla, you can't help to wonder what they were thinking. Why would they admit to doing something that it's so clear that it's nonsense, right? We know this now, but back in the day they truly believed in these things. But we have to remember that these women got tired. They were tired of having to go to trial all the time and being questioned, and everyone in the village probably looked at them all weird and threatened them and tortured them and treated them really bad. So eventually it was just easier to admit to doing something that you hadn't done, so that the torment would just end. One test that they did to see if a woman was a witch or not, they would tie her hands and then throw her in some water, like a river or a lake. If she floated, that meant that she was a witch, because she could walk on water and save herself, right? But if she sunk, then she was innocent, right? But she died. She drowned. Well, that was okay, right? Because she got to go to heaven because she spoke the truth after all. So it's all right. Sadly, a lot of children were convinced and manipulated into thinking that someone that they knew was a witch. And it wasn't hard to convince them. I mean, they're children. They're easy to persuade, especially if they needed something from you, like food or roof over their head. You know, if they didn't have a lot of money or a home, it was easy to bribe them with that. So they would point out witches left and right. One little girl named Gertrud was 11 years old at the time, and she was a foster kid. She lived with her aunts. Her parents had passed away, and she was the one responsible in the family to take care of the goats. There was another little boy named Mats who was 2 years younger than her. He lived with his own family, but he also took care of the goats with Gertrud. One day when they were out with the goats, they started arguing. They had a big fight, and legend says that it was about bread. Anyways, the goats ran off. They ran into a river, and someone had to go get them. So Gertrud head out of the water and get the goats. Mats runs home, mad that he had just lost a fight to Gertrud, and he tells his father, "I saw Gertrud walk on water. That's the only reason why she was able to get the goats back." The priest took Gertrud on a long walk to convince her to admit to the fact that she was a witch. Finally, Gertrud, who couldn't stand the pressure anymore, I mean, she was 11 years old, she told him that the neighbor's maid had taken her to Blåkulla. There, the devil had smeared oil on her feet, and that was the reason why she was able to walk on water. And after that, the devil had told her if she did not bring any more children to Blåkulla and write their names on a black piece of paper for him, he would make sure that there's a hunger epidemic spreading in her village. Another little boy in the village really brought the story home when he said that he had seen Gertrud take his sister to Blåkulla, and that he had witnessed a devil and an angel discussing all the children she had brought with her. The neighbor's maid, who Gertrud pointed out as a witch, was Marit Jonsdotter, and she became the first victim in the Swedish witch trials. Gertrud herself actually got sentenced to death as well because she was a witch, right? But they told her that it's okay, you can get out of this if you just keep telling us who else in the village is a witch. What's she gonna do, right? She starts pointing out people left and right, saying that she had seen them in Blåkulla. So she avoided death, but she did have to stand outside of the church 3 Sundays in a row and be ashamed, and then she was flogged in public 3 times. And Gertrud's father didn't really help the situation either. He, who at some point had actually been interested in marrying the maid, Marit, threw her completely under the bus, saying that she had once used him as a horse to ride on him to Blåkulla. Yeah, that is how ridiculous all of this got. Marit stood her ground and questioned how she could possibly have gone to Blåkulla if she did not even remember this herself. Eventually, she asked Gertrud to leave the room because she couldn't stand the sight of this kid anymore, and who can blame her? Marit and another woman were pushed to their limits to confess because, according to the law, they could not be punished and executed unless they actually admitted that they were witches. Despite being told that they were going to be executed either way, and if they admit that they did it, then at least they get to go to heaven, they still stood their ground. What's even worse is that Marit's own family turned on her. Her little sister said that Marit had brought her to Blåkulla riding backwards on a cow, and that she had used blood from her little pinky to write her sister's name in the devil's book. The accusations from her sister got even worse, and her brother said that their father had even been in on it, and they'd seen him in Blåkulla, and he had done the same terrible, horrible things to them there. Her younger sister was eventually flogged and executed herself because people thought that she was so convincing and she knew so many things about Blåkulla and about being a witch that she must be one herself. Everything at Blåkulla was thought to be done backwards, and everyone danced there until Satan laughed so hard that a big hole opened up in the ground, and you could look down and see all of the tormented souls in hell. Interestingly enough, there were also angels on the island, according to these children, and these angels sent messages saying that no one should have to work on a Thursday or wear shirts with frilled sleeves or have to sell tobacco above its fairest price. Some people started to question this and see that maybe these children were making these things up. Maybe there were no angels after all. Marit and another woman were pushed to their limits to confess because, according to the law, they could not be punished and executed unless they actually admitted that they were witches. Despite being told that they were going to be executed either way, and if they admit that they did it, then at least they get to go to heaven, they still stood their ground. The authorities had no choice but to put them back to prison again. But in 1672, sadly, Marit was finally executed. I think that the authorities simply had enough of the trials back and forth, and they just wanted to get it over and done with. She must have lost all hope of humanity at that point. She must have thought that the world was going insane, believing all these irrational and ridiculous things. For the next 8 years, about 280 so-called witches were executed. And little Gertrud, she grew up, she got married, and eventually died at 19 years old, probably from the plague. Finally, the authorities had enough of all the killing, and they sent messengers to churches all over the country and asked them to please let people know that any witches in the area had been banned and they were never going to return ever again. And so ended the Swedish witch trials. This was a time when almost every single person believed in heaven and hell. So if you can imagine someone telling you that you are guaranteed a spot in heaven if you confess, would you do it? And if someone told you that for the confession to be completed, you need to say who it was that brought you to Vlogtober in the first place, would you throw some random person under the bus? Us humans can be manipulated quite easily. Look at cults and wars and how they work, politics. It's all about the push and pull to try and convince us that one thing is true and not the other. And it was no different back in the day. These days in Sweden and in some Swedish-speaking parts of Finland, at Easter we have this tradition now where little kids dress up as witches and pretend to fly to Vlogtober. They go from door to door, kind of like trick-or-treating in during Halloween, but it's a little different. It's like you say, Happy Easter, and then if you're lucky you get a little treat. I did this as a kid myself. I didn't know about the witch trials as a child, obviously, and I don't know where exactly it turned in history, where we decided to, I don't know if it's like necessarily that we pay tribute to these women who passed away, or that we just enjoyed the stories of the witches and we thought it was exciting. Because honestly, when kids dress up as witches, it's only cute. It's not like the witches during Halloween. We wear a little thing around our heads. I think it's called the babushka. We paint little red cheeks and little dots like freckles, and we wear like a nice little skirt with flowers on it, and we have a little broomstick. It's all very endearing and adorable, and I can't help to wonder how this tradition came about. One could question whether or not we should be celebrating this or not, since so many people did die, but we also celebrate Halloween all over the world. I know that at Easter in Sweden it's specifically about witches as well, but during every fall we do celebrate this, and it's not something that's discussed very much in Sweden, to be honest with you. It's the same thing as with Halloween, that is celebrated not only in Sweden of course, but in several countries all over the world, and no one really discusses that then either, whether or not we should be celebrating it. So let me know what you think about this in the comment section down below. Should we be celebrating these things? And why, like how did this turn into a positive thing? How did that happen? What do you think? Because I'm really curious. Thank you so much for watching, and if you want to follow me during Vlogtober, and if you want to know more about Nordic mythology and folklore, like I'm gonna have some really cool episodes coming up about that. I'm really excited about it. It's like one of my favorite things in the world is history and what people used to believe in. So if you are also curious, then please subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!